indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a little bit. All right, item 3.0, approval of the agenda. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Camille, right, second.
Second.
What? All right, any discussion, questions? All right, if not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, 4.0, we have public comment, none this evening. 5.0, approval of the consent agenda. I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Deb? Second.
I'll second.
You see that?
Yep.
Mark, all right. Need any discussion or questions on that? Not, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay.
Maybe just to extend a thank you to the staff that have resigned and for their service to our district.
All right, noted. Okay. Communication and report, 6.1, Judge, please.
Awesome, thank you. Good evening, everybody. The real crux of this meeting, for me, as always, is going to be based on the handbook. I sent a copy of the handbook out for you. Did receive a little bit of feedback. I know there are some errors in there. Please understand that the essence behind the handbook is just to make sure that we have the correct things in the correct spot. What I always do every year, I've always gone back through and just make sure it's time for a fine-tooth comb after it gets approved. So there will be some additions, especially those that are recommended and requested by you. However, with the email that I received today from Mark, I had gone through, and for instance, page 18, there was a stated an appendix, and what I did was I just switched that over to the policy number so that it was clear. So everything in the handbook that is highlighted in yellow is new, and we, as always, we utilize the MSBA Model Student Handbook, which used to come on DVD. Nope, that's a lie. CD. Streaming wise, I can't even get my technology straight. Used to come on CD, and then you could just cut and paste things through that. Now it's a PDF, and we do the same thing. As such, one thing that did not change, two things that did not change was the dress code, which was implemented last year, very successful. So we're very happy with that. And then the other component I wanted to address was the cell phone policy. If you've been paying attention to the news, it's all over the place as far as we need to make sure that we have some policy in place, and some districts are going cold turkey on things. We do, what we have in place does meet the requirement. The requirement is just that every district have a cell phone policy in place by the March deadline next year. And so ours fits that. I am requesting that we just continue with it because, as I stated in my notes, it's a roll up. So eventually we will be phasing out. It's just a gradual phase out. So the middle schoolers, when it started, will never have their phones in hand except for passing time and during, let's say this year we're increasing it to 6th through 10th grade. Next year then it'll be in 6th through 11th grade, so on and so forth. Of course, if you choose to make that change, then we will certainly do that, and I'll type up a letter and get it sent out. But very happy with it. I can tell you without a doubt that there were some significant changes that students had, and really, to me, that goes back to last year when I asked you for your blessing in using that scale-up method. And what I then did was, when we had our back-to-school meeting with the students, I put it on them, and I said they were ready to pull the plug on the cell phones. But I advocated for you, and I requested you need to show that you're capable of doing this. Because if I give them the feedback that we're ready for a change, and it's September or it's January, and they say, yes, let's make the change, then you will not have them. So own this. And they're responding very well with it. So that's why I made the request that I did. Moving forward, today was my first full day back in the office. I've been coming in on Mondays, and we have we're kicking things off right away with new teacher workshop tomorrow. And so we've got them coming in. We'll be in this exact same space, and I'm going to have one full day of training as we lead into our back to school workshop for everybody at the end of the month. So very excited to be back, excited to get things going, and there's always a good energy that takes place at this time of the year. So, any questions for me at all? I know you're going to go over the handbook at a later time, but if there's anything now that you want to mention, I'll be happy to listen.
How many new teachers are you hosting tomorrow?
I believe we're going to have around 9. Potential one may not be able to make it. But
Anything else? All right, thank you.
thank you.
Next up, Todd, you're next.
Right, well, thank you. Dan told me, or Kim told me that if I did a good job, I'd get a real name next time, so make sure you share good comments with me. First of all, thank you. I'm really honored to be your new pre-K 5 principal. I'm super excited to be here. Staff has been just over the top, accommodating, helpful, friendly. So it's made that transition really easy for me. I guess I want you to know about me, that I'll do what's best for the students here, that I'm committed to making student-based decisions, to supporting staff to help them create a classroom that's supportive and educationally sound. So I'm really excited to get started this year. I've probably been back and forth a dozen times or so. So in that process, a variety of things. I was able to attend some workshops. So thanks again for allowing me to kind of stretch out. I was up in Roseville for the MESPA training. So I had 2 days of kind of mentorship training with new principals. Attended the service co-op for new principals, just the services that are provided to McRae. And then we did a data mine today. So we spent a few hours just kind of going through a lot of Excel spreadsheets and data on our students. So over the next few months, we'll kind of be unpacking that and then using that to make decisions moving forward on what we think is best for our kids, especially in regards of like reading and math. So that'll kind of help guide our decision making. You guys know about the READ Act, so we've been working with the letters training. Mitchell had a lot of things in place through that transition, and kind of a slow response by Lexia. We kind of got a late start, but we've got our roster inputted now, imported, and we should get our code, so we'll start that training relatively soon for our staff, kind of for year one for about 27 of the pre-K 6 staff. Schedule-wise, class lists have been mailed out. We're going to continue to tweak those a little bit. We have some students that have left, but some new students that we're going to add as well. So we'll continue to modify those. Just the last few things, probably 95% of our schedule is done, so we'll just tweak that. As crazy as it seems, the things we're tweaking are like lunch and recess, but the important stuff is in place and set aside for that. And then as Judd mentioned, we've got our workshop tomorrow that we'll take part in, 2 new staff and then myself down in pre-K 6. And then we've been working on kind of retooling a little bit of our handbook for the elementary as well, working with Judd on kind of the kind of sequence of consequences that would follow, and then kind of retooling the Wolverine way, or our kind of reward system, the PEIS, on kind of getting recognition for making good choices, not just punishing those that are bad. So that's going to be spending most of our effort on so far in the month of July. Do you have any questions for me?
That's it, we do. All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Okay, Josh, you need
Thank you. Good evening to everybody. Hope you've had a good summer. If all the days were like this, all just beautiful all day long. It really has been a pleasure working with Todd as he's joined our family from here in McRae. He brings a tremendous passion, for kids, and that's obvious just in his remarks that he shared today. But he's been involved with activities. He's been involved with academic clubs and just his own family and stuff like that. So I feel very good about his positive well-being that he brings to us at McRae. Judd is making me to be a liar in the next bullet, because I put down that we have 11 new teachers, so my math might have been off, but we've got, I think, closer to a dozen coming in tomorrow to spend some time with just some mentors. Jesse's going to spend some time and talk about our mentorship and mentee program and where they're going to get support as the year goes on. They'll be introduced to some of the paperwork and the business end of it here in the district office. They'll have an opportunity to tour the building, and see, where other people, where their rooms might be, and just be able to kind of go through the halls and realize that this is real and that school starts in just a couple short weeks, and get them excited about that. Really preparing them for success and making connections among that new staff. If you look at trends over the last 5 to 10 years, you ask some new teachers that have left education, you ask them why they've left education, and quite often you'll hear they'll say they weren't supported. And so this is our one way to put our best foot forward and support them as they come to be part of our family. On August the 7th, our POC participated. Some of you just right on this table got to walk through the athletic project and walk out on the turf. Right now, the turf has been installed, and there's still some areas that they're sewing together, and now they're adding a granule ground up tar type of a product that, as we were talking, is coming in. They bring it out there in the great big bags, and that's what those great big white bags that you see out there are. They set it on top of a trailer, and on top of the trailer has like a sharp pyramid, and it just sets that bag, and it breaks the bottom of the bag, and in those little pellets go, and then it goes kind of like a manure spreader, and it's up and down the field. And they'll put about 2 inches or so of that base in around the turf. Very interesting to watch that process. Very educational too. Electrical and light testing will be happening, I think, within the next week or so, which will be exciting to see those lights turned on. The press box has not been installed quite yet, but it is sitting out on the premise. And many visitors are coming up to the school, and we were talking to, his name is Juan, he's leading the group from Mammoth that's putting in the turf, and we were visiting with him. He said, the smaller the community, the more people that come up to visit. So I talked to a gentleman today, and he said that when we have our open house, we plan to have an open house or ribbon cutting on September the 20th, and he would like to be up in the bleachers at 2 o'clock that afternoon. He wants to be the first person there. So, which that's exciting. Back to school workshop is upon us. We have a visitor coming. His name is Kevin Honeycutt, who is going to share at 1 o'clock on Tuesday the 27th. He is an art teacher. He's a musician. He is a very well-known speaker across the country. Talks about many different things, primarily just to excite all of us to come back to school and just to fill the kids with learning. Dean Erdahl will be coming during our professional development. We'll also be talking about workplace safety, which needs to be done each year. Just special ed conversation. We have a new special ed director from the co-op. His name is Larry Severson, and he will be coming to greet the staff and share some things. We're talking about mandatory reporting, safety review from Chippewa County, type 3 training, which has to do with staff members driving vehicles, school vehicles. Mr. Trulock will give some education on that. Suicide and substance abuse, just to name a few of the topics that our staff will have during that professional development. Also, Mr. Trulock is planning for a fall coaches meeting too with his coaches, just to set expectations and to answer questions they might have. McRae this year has 4 new special ed teachers to our district, and so Jesse and I have been working with the co-op to provide some mentorship for them. That's just a little different than a classroom teacher would have, just a little different responsibility, so giving them that mentorship opportunity. And so that's been a great collaboration with Mr. Westbrook and Southwest West Central. Both Mr. Wheatley and Mr. Bertram have done a great job with updating staff and student handbooks. As you noticed in those attachments, they're not a short document. There's a lot of things in there, and they went through it with a fine-tooth comb and did a very nice job. I too appreciate the fact that you've allowed me to do some professional development this summer, going back to the MDE back to school workshop, and also to attending the Kennedy and Graven Law Conference, which there's not as many legislative changes that the schools will need to adopt this year as we did last summer at this time. You can see some of the topics that were discussed both at the MDE Back to School event and also the Kennedy and Graven presentation, but a new statewide system called Compass, which is Collaborative Minnesota Partnership to Advance Student Success, REDACT and curriculum updates, more school finance, looking at non-exclusionary discipline and trying to keep our kids in the classroom, so they do not miss out on the academic time, multilingual learners, and then also policy update and legislative impact too. Mr. Bertram did already go over a little bit about the REDACT. It's now it's called REDACT 2.0. They continue to make some changes to it. I think they'll continue to tweak it over the next probably year to 2 years. Right now at McRae, it's K-5 teachers and many of our special ed teachers, but across the state, there's close to 40,000 teachers that need to be educated in the literacy training. And so when Todd made the comment about Lexia, which is the mother company of letters training, that's a lot that they had to process. So it was not McRae that was running behind, but they had a lot they needed to get in order from March until June. Pallets of curriculum continue to arrive all summer long, and getting those things into teachers' workspace and learning spaces. And we just look forward to a great 2024, I can't believe it, 2024, 2025 school year. So, thank you very much. Questions you folks might have?
I was wondering for the, track project, with all the rain we've had, from a timetable, is it still on schedule?
Yes,
Wow,
which is kind of crazy. You know, we talked about having, there being over 1,500 semi-loads of dirt being brought in and out and stuff like that. Once the tile was put in, it did allow them to get in and out just a little bit easier, so I think that was a plus.
sure.
But yeah, it is not slowed the process down.
So what's the time frame on completion
So the time frame on
on the
complete,
football field?
sure. So the plan is to play, our first home game would be on September the 13th. Is that correct, Mr. Trulock?
First week,
Yeah. So that is home.
Is that the 13th?
Yeah.
No,
No.
No, Sorry.
The second week is.
I didn't mean to catch you off guard.
I think it's a
You
third
just
football
won.
game.
It's the third week, yeah, third week of football.
Third week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So right now, there still is some settling of the product out there before we can actually go out and use it. But I would imagine that we'll be out there by the end of August or very close,
That's homecoming also, if you didn't say that.
the 20th. No, the 13th is homecoming.
yes.
So that product just lays on top of the turf or
Mhm.
works its way.
Yeah, it works its way down. And they have like, and he's out there right now doing it, but they go over it with a brush and it kind of puts it into the
The strand.
The actual turf is like that long.
It's really long, longer than you think, yeah.
They've been, yesterday they were working.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yes. I don't know if they've been every Sunday, yesterday.
They have multiple teams. Like, I don't know if I don't know if we've seen any more than 8 people out there. Does that seem like the most?
No, there were 12 out
Okay.
there one weekend when I.
So sometimes they're working on multiple fields at multiple times. So the main gentleman or the main crew leader will come in and make sure to supervise to get it started, then he'll go race off to another one, and another crew will come in and do different things. So it's not always the same group out there, but
The rest of it will follow this fall, the other ball fields will get done this year yet, or?
they'll be finished. They won't be able to be used because the grass will need to take. We'll just have to see what that next spring looks like, and that'll be the same for the grass field that's out by the palace too. Is that will be seeded, and then hopefully it'll begin to germinate before we have frost and be ready to go next year. But I mean, if next spring we get a wet spring on top of brand new grass, I don't know what that's gonna look like. Sure. Good question.
So we don't intend on using the football field over.
We'll start for practice. Yeah, and then will there be some junior high or JV?
We have at least one junior high game scheduled there, and there might be a couple more. We'll just have to figure out scoring, and we'll probably use stopwatches, but.
All right, any other questions for Josh? No, all right, ready, Joe? 6.2 committee, the only committee that's met since the last meeting was that POC, and we just covered pretty much everything we discussed there and took a look at.
The only thing I added is Dan from ICS did update us on budgetary things and,
And that might not be totally correct. So.
well, he was optimistic that we have a slight surplus at the time of our meeting.
Mhm. So we'll see. But it's not done yet, so we'll have to wait. and see what happens.
What's changed since that meeting?
Yeah. Well, at least it's on time. That's great news with this rainy spell we've had. So. Okay, 6.3, board discussion.
Just a comment, we've talked about this before, but I know when I kind of drove around the buildings, it seems like the pride and the ownership at our new facility with the weeds growing around the building, the weeds around the elementary playground. We've asked if that could please get taken care of. It's just a very poor first impression.
Yep.
And even when you drive up, it's weed whipped around the sign, but around that utility box, it's not, and it just.
So we did have
It's not
somebody
very
come
good.
out, come out and give some education to our custodial staff. The lawn that is to the west of the elementary school, it never established itself with the heat and lack of rain last year. And so they have told us to allow that to actually grow, and so it goes to head, so it reseeds it. So that is going to look tall and unkept until it goes to seed.
But we can still trim the weeds around the fence, right?
Yeah, we can still do that.
And around the building.
Yeah, like even right here and right there, there's a lot of weeds
Yeah.
on the landscaping part of it, I would say, so.
Yeah.
Understood. I hear you.
Okay, anything else on board discussion? No. Okay, then we'll go on to 7.0 business items. Which is, the first one is a resolution calling for the general election. So I'll need a motion for that. And I'll make that motion. People don't like that one because they have to read it, so I'll do that. All right, I need a second though. All right, Scott. Okay, I'll find this thing. Resolution relating to the election of school board members and calling the school district general election. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 2180, State of Minnesota as follows. 1, it is necessary for the school district to hold its general election for the purpose of electing 3 school board members for terms of 4 years each. 3 are in this election season. Okay. The clerk shall include on the ballot the names of the individuals who file or have filed affidavits of candidacy during the period established for filing such affidavits, as though they had been included by name in this resolution. The clerk shall not include on the ballot the names of individuals who filed timely affidavits of withdrawal in the manner specified by law. Number 2, the general election is hereby called and elected to be held in conjunction with the state general election on Tuesday, the 5th of November, 2024. Number 3, pursuant to Minnesota statute section 205A.11, the precincts and polling places for this general election are those polling places and precincts or parts of precincts located within the boundaries of the school district and which have been established by the cities or towns located in whole or in part within the school district. The voting hours at those polling places shall be the same as for the state general election. Number 4, the clerk is hereby authorized and directed to cause written notice of said general election to be provided to the county auditor of each county in which the school district is located, in whole or in part, at least 74 days before the date of the said election. The notice shall include the date of said general election and the office or offices to be voted on at said general election. Any notice given prior to the date of the adoption of this resolution is ratified and confirmed in all respects. The clerk hereby authorized and directed to cause notice of said general election to be posted at the administrative offices of the school district at least 10 days before the date of said general election. The clerk is hereby authorized and directed to cause a sample ballot to be posted at the administrative offices of the school district at least 4 days before the date of said general election, and to cause 2 sample ballots to be posted in each polling place on election day. The sample ballot shall not be printed on the same color paper as the official ballot. Sample ballot for a polling place must reflect the offices, candidates, and rotation sequence on the ballots used in that polling place. The clerk is hereby authorized and directed to cause notice of said general election to be published in the official newspaper of the school district for 2 consecutive weeks, with the last publication being at least 1 week before the date of said election. The notice of election so posted and published shall state the offices to be filled, set forth in the form of ballot below, and shall include information concerning each established precinct and polling place. The clerk is authorized and directed to cause the rules and instructions for use of the optical scan voting system to be posted in each polling place on election day. Number 5, the clerk is authorized and directed to acquire and distribute such election materials as may be necessary for the proper conduct of this election, and generally to cooperate with election authorities conducting other elections on that date. Clerk and members of the administration are authorized and directed to take such actions as may be necessary to coordinate this election with those other elections, including entering into agreements or understandings with appropriate election officials regarding preparation and distribution of ballots, election administration, and cost sharing. The clerk is further authorized and directed to cause or to cooperate with proper election officials to cause ballots to be prepared for use at said election in substantially the following form, with such changes in form, color, and instruction that may be necessary to accommodate the optical scan voting system. Yes, that's it. Okay, any discussion or Questions on that? All right, we'll have to do a roll call on this one. So, Deb,
Yes.
John.
Yep.
Carmel.
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Me, I'm a yes as well, so that resolution is passed and adopted. Okay. 7.2, I need a motion to adopt policy 522, which is the Title IX sex discrimination policy, grievance procedure and process.
So moved.
Yeah, all right. Second,
Second.
Carmel, all right, thank you. All right, questions, concerns?
So just to understand, it looks like after reading the MSBA, like, it's a pretty weighty policy, like, there's a lot of technical
Stuff.
stuff in there,
Yeah.
but, so MSBA basically, like, because it wasn't highlighted, they just started over and adopted everything, like, federally that was required.
So there was federal law that
Yeah.
changed, and they took it upon themselves to update the policy,
Yeah.
and it pretty much was an overhaul.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a long process, the big change, if you will, for schools and specifically for me, is that if you have, there used to be a time in the past in which you had to have 2 people investigate it, and then a person would make a decision based on this. This is now more efficient. Not every school district has a human resource person and a superintendent and 4 principals and, these extra people. So in terms of resource and time, I believe you're able to get more done in a shorter amount of time, which I think is very important in these cases.
And if something should happen with those court cases and things that are out there, then we may have to review this again.
That's
Or do you think we're good for the year?
I
or
think we're good for
For the year, okay, okay.
I think other states may have
Issues,
more issues than
okay,
we currently have.
okay. Any other comments? If not, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay, 7.3, I need a motion to adopt policy 722, which is public data and data subject requests.
Make the motion to adopt policy 7.2.
Okay, Scott, need a second?
I'll second. Mark.
Does it, Mark? All right, thank you. All right, any questions or discussion on that?
And this policy has a lot of just changes of definitions or updates of definitions. A lot of terms.
All right, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, 7.4, I need a motion to adopt policy 806, this is the crisis management policy.
I'll make that motion to
All right,
adopt
Camille.
policy 806.
All right, second. John, all right. Questions on this one, or comments? Okay, those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. Carries. Great, 7.5, excuse me. Make a motion to adopt the 24-25 student handbook. All right, Scott. Second? I'll second that one.
Before voting, may I make a
Sure,
comment?
yes, sir.
So, at the school board, you adopted the new, Title IX sex discrimination policy. As you go look at the updating of the handbooks, that new policy will be put in there to take place of the old one. So, when Judd and Todd were working on the handbooks prior to August 1st, the August 1st new, policy 722 did not exist. And so we would take the new policy to put it in that place.
So do we maybe need to do a friendly amendment to that motion, that you're approving it based upon the addition of
Yes.
this?
Yeah, sure. Because now you have adopted, for
Yes.
522, but just to know that new piece is going into the handbook.
The handbook will have to be revised if we pass it as,
Yeah,
because we have
correct.
passed it.
Yeah, it just is.
Yep.
We need to make sure the new policy is in that's to be adopted.
So we want to adopt the 24-25 student handbook with updated policy.
To revise
522.
it, yes, revise it.
Which we have
Okay.
various-
Yeah.
Could I,
Sure.
Superintendent, could I please,
You may, absolutely.
so I also want to clarify for you, I did update the grading scale in the handbook to a straight 10%. Okay, Now, straight 10% doesn't mean, the way it's listed in there, it looks like literally you would get an A anywhere between a 90 and a 100. Okay, that's not the case. A 10% grade scale, there'll still be pluses and minuses, but it gets rid of the A plus, gives a larger top bracket, it's like 6-7 points for the A range, and then you get the A minus range, then you go B plus, B minus. So what I wanted to do is, first and foremost, last spring I brought it forward to staff at a staff meeting. They overwhelmingly said, please, let's do that. I want to bring it to you and put it in the handbook, but I'm not going to finalize it without talking to the staff first. Okay, so that will be it will be updated, and it will look very familiar, but it's just going to be on that 10-point scale instead of the traditional 7-point scale that we want.
Is that the same with the elementary school?
That's something that we need to discuss. If there's more of an impact, especially when you're talking scholarships and those kinds of things. I think a case could be made for either situation, but when it comes down to it, that's what we don't have anything adjusted. Thank you.
Any other questions on that?
Well, I read through it and it's extensive, so thank you for all your hard work. It's very, my head was hurting.
It's a labor of something. I love it.
So I did, yeah, like you said, there was a bunch of formatting things, I kind of stickers, formatting, a couple of things I just printed out, pulled out, maybe for clarification's sake, like under the e-learning day plan, it says teachers will have office hours.
Yep.
If I read that for face value, that said to me they're coming into the office. Could that word be used work hours instead of office hours?
Yep.
Another thing was excused absences must be called into the school.
Yep.
For e-learning, who's gonna be here? So maybe it's leave a message, again, trying to be a little bit more clear. And then I wondered what on page 11, what the placeholder. It says placeholder, and so if we're gonna approve it, what is the placeholder?
I need to see a copy of it.
Oh, so I can refer to that. So last year, we developed a middle school, high school schedule that had more rigor. And with that more rigor, we had expectations that kids would attend all their classes online. There'd be a little bit of a passing time before they log in with the new teacher. We didn't want to have it that rigid at the elementary level, because if you have 5 and 8-year-old at home, they don't have their Chromebooks at home, how are we going to expect that? And so then Mitch worked with his, Mr. Kent worked with his team, last year to have some time in which if you wanted to contact and be live with that 4th grade teacher, you could. And there was 2 times. There was a morning and an afternoon time, and then there was some expectations with allied classes, whether it be the Phi Ed teacher or the music teacher, things like that. So that document was a letter that Mr. Kent had sent home to families, and Mr. Bertram did not have access to that letter. He has that letter now. It's available. He's already updated it, so that's why it says placeholder in there. We just
there were multiple conversations about this, so as soon as you brought it up, I was like, so it's just a matter of getting the transition from Mr. Kent to Mr. Bertram, so that he was able to dig it out, so then we can get that answer.
Then just curious as to why employment background checks is showing up in the student handbook.
That would be something that was part of, that would have been something that was part of the MSBA language that came up.
I'm sure it would be. There are students that are
Why?
hired maybe to be, junior high officials, or to, they get paid because they do custodial work after school.
I'll double check
But
it.
it talks about athletic coaches, extracurricular assistants, advisors. It doesn't, volunteers, independent contractor. Yeah, it does list student employees, but I just thought that was odd.
Sure.
Then as I read through it, it was kind of like, many topics were splattered. Like we had food stuff on page 12, then we had food stuff on page 14, I think it was, and just wondered if that's how it came up from MSBA, and it was like, I had to search all over and kind of read. I'm thinking from the ease and the perspective of parents looking through this.
Can I have those page numbers again, please?
12 and 14,
Thank
you
you.
talked about food in the classrooms, but then it also, 14, it talks about lunch breaks, so it's kind of a consistent topic, it's food.
Okay.
But just some of my thoughts. Let's see what we got. Then under, on page 20, for the transportation of public students, I wondered if we needed to reference the McKinney Meadow Act. And then also, again, here's another one of just maybe not putting things together under academics on page 21. We've got about the college and the high schools, then we've got another section on 25 about post-secondary, the PSEO classes. So is that seem to be quite similar in my perspective? So I just thought, could they be put together? Spacing stuff. Then you always say if you put the devil in the detail, you better follow through on it because there's more liability if you don't. And this is something really simple, but it's like the Trapper Keeper on page 26, 5-star notebook or something similar in nature. So the similar in nature kind of like excludes the 12 inches by 12 by 3 3/4 inches by 12. So I'm just wondering, is it one or the other? Do we put it specific or do we leave it something similar?
What page was that?
26. And then the proverbial, the one that comes up all the time, the dress code. Yeah. It was a little maybe confusing to me about students must wear shirts that extend to the belt line and must have an opaque fabric in the front, back, and sides. So you mean you won't allow something like this that's not opaque? If you look at the detail and how it's written, that's what it says. But then on the other side, it says students may wear tops with fabric from top to bottom, armpit to armpit, and then footwear. There's nothing in there about footwear. Is that just that you have to wear shoes? It just says footwear.
Okay. Pretty sure that was all straight from MSBA last year because that was.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
We should be looking at it and making sure that it fits for our district, so.
Is there any footwear that wouldn't be allowed?
Or just said footwear must be worn. It just says footwear, so.
It's in the column of students must wear footwear.
Yeah.
And then the students may wear, that's the other column,
Right.
but it's not clear, but I don't know how detailed you need to get, because yeah, if there's nothing like that they can't wear,
Right.
if there's anything excluded in this.
The Heelys. My kids went through that.
No,
Remember?
I don't want to go through that again. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that like you talk shop class, you don't
Yeah.
want,
Flip-flops.
sandals, flip flops, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessitate something to go, the length of kind of steel toed.
Well, but that can be addressed by the teacher. That's, in,
Yeah.
for shop, this is what you.
I'll take a peek.
Maybe
at it.
a little bit more definition right there, yeah. And then I thank you for your comments about the cell phone policy, because I did get a lot of calls from parents about, did you see this Redwood Falls is doing no cell phone? These were great, why are we not? And so thank you for that, I appreciate that, and
What was your comment about the opaque? You don't want the
well,
word
it's
opaque in there?
student must wear. They must wear a shirt that extends to the belt line and must have an opaque fabric in the front arm and on the undersides of the arms.
Well, that just
Just-
means you can't see through it. Can't see through it. Well, but like, I think that, like, you don't come with a mesh shirt on that has.
I'm not-
Again, if we have it in here, then we need to hold people accountable to it. That's one of my points. That's one of my points. If this stuff is in here, the specific, then we need to hold people accountable to it. And then just on the flip side, I didn't see anything about a dress code in the staff. And I don't know if there's one in there or
I
not.
have some language in there that talks about professionally and appropriately.
Which is up to interpretation.
Oh,
You don't want
1000%.
to, and you don't
Yes.
want to get specific. I mean,
Yeah.
you shouldn't have to get specific, but in this day and age, like even the spaghetti tops here, you can have a spaghetti top armpit to armpit, but it can be a lower top too. And how do you hold people accountable?
Well, there's a little diagram. in there, too.
Very simple, very simple, put a t-shirt on, right?
There's a diagram that's included.
Did you?
And I do know this last school year, both Mr. Wheatley and Mr. Kent did have conversations with adults in the building that,
Yeah.
were probably dressed less than appropriate, whether it was pajama pants on a non-pajama pant day. So those conversations are being had.
Okay, anything else on 7.5, that student handbook? If not, I'm gonna ask for those in favor of adopting the 2025 student handbook with the revised Title IX sex discrimination policy. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay, 7.6, I need a motion to adopt the 24-25 staff handbook. I'll make that motion. We need a second.
I'll second.
Is that John? All right, any questions or comments on that? All right. There's none, let's take a vote. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay, we have a list of our school board meetings for Monday, September 9th, October 14th, and Tuesday, November 12th. I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to
Scott, second.
Second.
Carmel? Yep. All right, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. All right, we are adjourned.